Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for January 6th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have a quick hour, a fun hour ahead, and we're gonna talk about a whole lot of different things tonight. And the first thing that I really want to talk about, I mean, it's gonna be later in the show, is there's something out there that you can do to it's like it to me it's like sports betting, but it's a different way. It's kind of like stock trading, but there was something that happened over the weekend that people are pointing to as a major issue with this service. So I will tell you about it, but I do think that it's going to, just as I've always talked about the sports betting being a slippery slope, this is a really slippery slope. So we'll get into that near the end of the show. And then we'll also talk about that Brendan Sorsby. His contract is worth more than Shador Sanders' contract. His, full professional Browns contract. A college quarterback is making more money than him. So we'll talk about that. But we are broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. The Padres, I have a feeling, and I have I guess I'll just say I have a feeling that we're not going to see anything happen until spring training. I don't think we're going to see anything big happen. That just seems to be the way things are going with AJ Preller and the Padres the last few years. Now, I think there might be a little bit of maybe a moved up timeline just because the World Baseball Classic is this year. But I had someone ask me yesterday, "Oh, when do you expect the Padres to sign another big name?" I don't know. I don't think they will until spring training. I mean, and when we say big name, what kind of name is that? I don't expect them to make splashes here in the next couple weeks. And it's it's something that I think I have grown into a little bit, because I used to be really impatient with roster building. I used to be really impatient with, hey, there are a bunch of holes in this roster. Spring training is halfway through, and there's not enough guys on the team. And I'm not like that this year. And I'm not going to be like that because I've seen in the past that they will build a team in time. The team, for the most part, is already built. Of course, they have a few areas that they need to improve on. Pitching, always starting pitching. And then you also need a first baseman. But for the most part, your outfield is set. You have Gavin Sheets that can spell well, not any of the outfielders, but you have Gavin Sheets that can play some outfield. The focus is on starting pitching, and the focus is on a first baseman. And so I, again, don't expect anything to happen until spring training. Now that I said that, maybe AJ Preller makes an announcement like 5 minutes after I sign off the show tonight. But it's not something that I think we're going to be talking about here leading up. So I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go a different route this year, because last year I was counting down to spring training and I was saying, this is what they got left. This is what they don't have. Well, I'm not going to do that this year because I feel like it's just a waste of time. Because they'll figure it out. They will figure it out, and they will get a team out there, and it will be fine. So there are some guys out there, though, I do think are interesting names for the Padres to consider. And we talked about it earlier on Gwen and Chris, but there are some reclamation projects still out there. And this came from MLB.com. But you have a DH in Marcell Ozuna, which I know he's 35. He had a down year last year. I don't know that Marcell Ozuna is the guy. I don't know that he fits here. So I'm going to say Marcell Ozuna, he's not going to come to San Diego. Now, the second one we had some discussion on, Max Scherzer. He's 41, and they're saying that, as hard as it is to say, he's underrated because his injury-plagued season last year put his market down a little bit. Teams aren't sure if he's going to be able to make it through a full season. Teams aren't sure if how many starts they're going to get out of him. But if you look at his Statcast numbers, his other metrics, he was actually pretty good on the mound. So I wouldn't be opposed to bringing Max Scherzer in for a fifth spot. And the question was posed to Tony earlier. Can you see Max Scherzer being a guy who is okay with being a fifth starter and just kind of blending in with the rest of the team? Tony says he thinks that can happen. I think it can happen too. I wouldn't be, depending on the money, I wouldn't be depending on the money, I wouldn't be opposed for them to take a flyer on Max Scherzer. Now, I could end up horribly and might end up horribly, but I don't know that Max Scherzer just pitched in the playoffs. So I think that he's still got something left. I think that he's still got something that is something the Padres need to look at. Next one, Harrison Bader, which Chris and Tony were both really, really high on Harrison Bader because he's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. And his offensive side is not as good, but he can provide some pop when you need it. But the offensive numbers are not what you're bringing in Harrison Bader for. You're going to bring him in for defense, and you're going to bring him in for, base stealing, things like that. But I don't know that he actually fits right now. Where are you going to actually put him? You have three guys already that are an everyday outfielder: Ramon Laureano, Jackson Merrill, and Fernando Tatis Jr. So where are you going to put Harrison Bader? Do you find a spot? Do you somehow do you put Ramon Laureano at DH? I don't know that you do that. There is a little bit of a question for me as to where Harrison Bader would fit on this team. I don't think, and Chris says this on the chat, no room in the outfield for a defense-first outfielder. I agree. If you're going to bring in an outfielder, you're going to need a guy, or you're going to bring in a guy that can bring a bat with him, because you need a bat right now. You don't need any more defense in the outfield. You got Jackson Merrill, Ramon Laureano, and you got a Platinum Glover ×2, Fernando in right field. So I definitely... I like Harrison Bader. Don't know that it works here. Now, the last two are former Padres. We talked about Luis Arraez yesterday, and I do think that Luis Arraez would fit well with this team, obviously. He has fit well with this team the last couple of years. I know his skill set isn't what people want. I know that people don't want him to play first base, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if they head into the season with Luis Arraez at first base. Sometimes you're just going to have to make do with what you have. And Luis Arraez he's not a terrible first baseman. I know metrics may say otherwise, but he's not, I don't think that he's a liability at first base. And I do think that he got a lot better as the year went on at first base. So I would not be opposed to bringing him back and putting him further down in the lineup and having him play first base. And hey, if he regains that 340 batting average type of season, then move him up in the order. But last year, I said this yesterday, it was too much. It was too much of Luis Arraez at the top of the order. I know injuries sometimes determined whether or not he was at the top of the order, but it was just too much Luis Arraez at the top of the order. But I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back for the right price. And I just read this article. I was telling Tony about it, actually, before he left the studio, because I Googled Luis Arraez just to see if there's anything out there on him. And the article says, Padres All-Star predicted to bolt for 2-year, $20 million deal with the Guardians. And I clicked, and I wanted to see if there was like a reputable name reporting this. And it wasn't a reputable name. It was someone from a place called Just Baseball. And I'm not saying that they're not reputable. I'm just saying I haven't heard of them before. But this person predicted, Ryan Finkelstein said, Arraez would bolt for a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Guardians in free agency. He said they're always trying to squeeze as much offense as they can around Jose Ramirez. Having two of the best contact-oriented bats in the game with Arraez and Steven Kwan would make the Guardians lineup a bit more interesting around J-Ram. I don't know if I'm a Guardians fan if I would like that. You got two contact guys in the top third of the order. I'm not sure I would want to do that. But Luis Ariz, if 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 the price is right, bring him back. And then finally, they say a reclamation project still out there. Victor Caratini. Caratini is actually pretty underrated if you look at his numbers. He's not going to wow you with anything, but he's a switch hitter, so that helps a little bit with the righty lefty thing. And we all know that he's a good game caller. Yu Darvish used him as his personal catcher when Victor Caratini was in town. And you may ask why. Why would you bring in another catcher? You already have a couple catchers. You got Luis Campusano, you got Freddie Fermin. Why are you bringing in other catchers? Because I have no idea what Luis Campusano is going to do this year. The numbers last year in AAA tell me that he still can swing a bat, but at the major league level, he's not able to find it. And I don't know that you could go into a season with Luis Campusano as your backup catcher plan. I don't think you can go into the season thinking, all right, this is our battery. I think it's called a battery. This is our battery for the next season. Freddie Fermin and Luis Campusano. So why would you think about bringing Victor Caratini in? Because Victor Caratini is veteran. Victor Caratini could push Luis Campusano, and I think Victor Caratini is a safer bet for what he's going to do, more so than what Luis Campusano is going to do, because I can't even begin to predict what Luis Campusano would do over a full season with the Padres. We just haven't seen it yet, and we've talked about it on the show before. Last year, Victor Caratini hit 259 and he 12 home runs, 46 RBIs, OPS plus of 101. He had, let's see, for the Houston Astros last year, he played in 114 games. He had 344 at bats. His OPS was 728. I'll tell you one thing right now, that 259 batting average is a lot better than what we saw last year from the catcher position. So there you go. Oh, battery is pitcher and catcher. I knew I was doing something wrong. But Victor Caratini, pretty solid for a catcher. And I've said this before. Catcher is a position that you either go all in as a team and you pay a lot of money for that person, or you just find some guys that can get you through the season and play well in the meantime. But I would think that they need to bring in someone else at the catcher position just so they have some choices and they're not locked into a Fermin Campusano team. So I hate to keep saying this about Luis Campusano, but I just have no idea what he can do. And I think that's fair to bring someone else in just because you have no idea what he's going to do. So those are some of the reclamation projects MLB.com put out there. And again, a few names on there. Max Scherzer, Ariz, and possibly Caratini being someone the Padres can look at. All right, when we get back, San Diego State has received a commitment from a former Kentucky quarterback, so we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about some of the other free agents that are still left out there. And at the end, we're going to talk about the future of betting, and we'll talk about what happened with this new app that everybody's talking about. And then the Daily Gripe is something I don't think anyone is going to know what I'm going to say. So stick with me. Skraby Show. More after the break on 97.3 The Fan.
City Cruises live delivery.
Matt Skraby back here with you on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. I'm trying to turn down my thing while moving my camera around. Thank you for joining. If you want to watch the show and see what I look like. It's still weird to me that some people will say, I've been listening on the radio for years. I didn't even know what you look like until I watched the YouTube. And I always hope it's a good review on what I look like. But you can, if you go to YouTube, you could search 97.3 The Fan. You could also search The Skraby Show or go to youtube.com/at The Skraby Show. SKRAB as in boy Y. You could also watch on X, 97.3 The Fan SD, and you could watch on or listen on the Odyssey app. If you would like to do that, just type in The Skraby Show or type in 97.3 The Fan. I actually am very happy because over the break, I kept a document that has a bunch of stories that I saved, like maybe I'll talk about or whatever. But I ended up putting this thing in the document, but I put it in this morning. And I'm so happy I checked the document because then I get to talk about it. The A's denied Las Vegas Athletics and Vegas Athletics trademarks again. So we'll have to get into that because that is kind of crazy. They can't even trademark their own name. And it's just another thing that the A's, you're telling me that no one in the A's organization, for the years that they were planning this, decided to go scoop up those trademarks? It's kind of crazy. So we'll talk about that. But I wanted to start with the San Diego State quarterback who is transferring from Kentucky. His name is Stone Saunders, and according to Kirk Kenny of the Union Tribune, he is now coming to the Aztecs. He was the Aura Sports, his representation, which is kind of weird to say about, a college athlete. But they tweeted out a photo of him in an Aztecs uniform and Snapdragon Stadium in the background. So I guess they are convinced that he is coming. But he was a really, really, really great high school quarterback. He went to Pennsylvania's Bishop McDevitt High School. He set the state records for passing yards, touchdowns, and completions over his 4-year varsity career. The 204 career touchdown passes ranks third all-time nationally. Did I just read 4-year varsity career? Man, if I was good enough to play football as a freshman on the varsity crew, you've got some future ahead of you in the football world. But that's who committed. And I do know Kirk Kenny actually said this to us, but one of the fun things about Stone Saunders, and if you know anything about Kirk Kenny eats Chick-fil-A every single day. And it's been like over 1,400, 1,500 days at this point. And Stone Saunders said in his bio with Kentucky, quote, if he could eat one thing for the rest of his life, it would be anything from Chick-fil-A. So this is a match made in heaven for Kirk Kenny and Stone Saunders. There is some sort of bit or interview or something, podcast that can be done from a Chick-fil-A. And I think that's what Kirk Kenny needs to do. So we'll see what happens with Stone Saunders. Jaden Denegal is the Aztecs returning starter at quarterback, but these other quarterbacks are going to be able to compete with him. And anybody who can make the team in an SEC school, at an SEC school like Kentucky, even though it's not the greatest football school in the world, I think you're pretty good. Jaden Denegal came from Michigan, so Sean Lewis, coach of the Aztecs, working those phones, going to visit people, and I think he's doing a great job. So good job to Sean Lewis. He's doing a great job for what he can because, Texas Tech is spending millions of dollars on players, and they're spending more on a certain position group than the Aztecs can spend on their entire team. So that's why the playing field is not fair for everyone in college football. But, if you can get these transfers, this is the new game. Sean Lewis seems to be good at it. So hopefully they can follow up this year with another great season next year. Some of the notable free agents left out there for Major League Baseball. There haven't been many signings as of late. There's been some signings of players from the KBO and Nippon Professional Baseball, but here are some of the big names that are still out there. And I've been reading that Kyle Tucker, he's still out there. I've been reading that the Blue Jays are really pushing hard to bring in Kyle Tucker. And so I had an interesting conversation last week about the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. The person was like, "Hey, you're always complaining about the Dodgers spending a bunch of money. Why don't you complain about the Blue Jays spending a bunch of money?" And the answer is I should complain about the Blue Jays spending a bunch of money, but why I don't is because they're so far behind the Dodgers already in the salary department. The Dodgers are the one team that can spend anything they want in baseball. The one team. They can spend anything. Blue Jays are trying to keep up. The Blue Jays are trying to compete in the money department. And Toronto's a huge city. They just went to the World Series. They have a massive fan base. So I understand why they're spending money. I just, is it different? It's not different between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. It's not. I feel like the Dodgers, though, have taken advantage of some of the loopholes, and that's okay. I'm not going to go down that road again because what they did was allowed under the rules. Maybe not the spirit of the rule, but whatever. It was allowed under the rules. So I'm done complaining about that. But the Blue Jays spending money, I think, is a good thing because at least someone else is trying to spend money. Although I don't want to see every single team who gets to the World Series all of a sudden just be able to spend a lot of money because then we're just going to have a few teams. Seems like if you make it to the World Series and your team's in it, you've just made yourself a boatload of money. And the rich get richer, and I guess the poor get poorer. In this case, it's more like the good teams get way better and the other teams don't. But and Trevor says, because we like the Blue Jays. I'm trying to keep that out of it, Trevor. I'm trying to keep it out of it. I should not hate the Dodgers and not the Blue Jays because the Blue Jays are basically doing the same thing as the Dodgers. Although I don't believe there's a bunch of deferred money with the Blue Jays. So who knows? I would have to go back and check and see if Vlad Jr.'s deal has deferred money or not. But it is funny to me that I'm not complaining about one team for doing something I'm complaining about another team for doing. So there's a little bit of bias here. And I guess I have to say that up front. There's some bias behind this. And I should not I should hold each in the same regard, but I don't. I don't. Dominic says never qualified Dodger hate. It is something that never needs to be qualified. All right. You made me feel better. Some of the other free agents, Alex Bregman. I think the Red Sox are going to make a huge offer to him. Bo Bichette, Blue Jays. Cody Bellinger. I saw the Giants are interested in Cody Bellinger. Some of the starting pitchers still out there. Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, Ranger Suarez, and Walker Buehler. You also got notable veterans like Eugenio Suarez, and we talked about the Pirates maybe being in on that. JT Realmuto, he's a 35-year-old veteran catcher. Paul Goldschmidt, he is looking for a new home after a season with the Yankees. He's older. And Justin Verlander, we've already talked about Max Scherzer. And the remaining relievers, Sir Anthony Dominguez, David Robertson, Michael Kopech, and Jacob Junis, I think I always forget how to say his name. But there's some guys out there. There are some guys out there. And that's why I'm not worried about the roster construction at this point in time in the Padres year. Because if those names are all out there, there's a lot of names out there. You got 4 superstars right there. Or stars. Kyle Tucker, Bregman, Bichette, Bellinger. You got big name pitchers, Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, Ranger Suarez. And you got big time players like Eugenio Suarez. So there's a way for the Padres to make this roster and make it competitive. here before spring training or during spring training. Joseph says Vladimir does not have deferred money. And also, my gripe is every year the offseason takes longer and longer for signings to take place. Yeah, I would have to go back and check. Jonathan says, Skraby, your thoughts. If we could only do one pitcher or one hitter, where do you go? It's a far out question, Jonathan. We'll tackle that on the other side. We'll also talk about this new way of betting, and we'll get into the daily gripe on the other side. You're listening to the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan.
The biggest.
Final segment of the Skraby Show tonight on 97.3 The Fan. Thank you to everybody for listening and joining me and watching all of the above. Again, you can go to YouTube and watch if you'd like at the Skraby Show, or you can go to 97.3 The Fan on the YouTube. I got a bunch of things that just came in during the break. And let's see. Unhappy guest. Wow, that's a good name. 97.3 The Fan. What do you know about Guath not starting the other night? The newspaper said it was due to disciplinary reasons. We had Mark Ziegler on earlier, and honestly, I was in and out of the conversation because I was doing other editing, but it didn't seem like a big deal. It didn't really seem like a big deal at all. So he should be back, ready to go. Guath man. Although he hasn't played as well this year. So he's still got a lot of season left. Anyway, I'm trying to scroll through things. If you're just listening for the first time, I am a one-man band. I do the board, I do the talking, I do the streaming, I do it all. Okay, so back to Jonathan's. If we could only do one pitcher or one hitter, where do you go? I asked for clarification. Is this something that's within the Padres? I'm going to treat this real. This is, I am AJ Preller, and I have certain limitations. And so if I could only do one pitcher and one hitter, the pitcher that I would do Zach Gallen. I like Zach Gallen. Think he's a good pitcher. Had a down year last year, 13-15, 4.83 ERA. So his record tells me 13-15. He gives up the lead very early, or he gets the lead very early, because that's a lot of decisions, actually. 28 decisions is a ton of decisions. I think that when I was looking at Zach Gallen as predictions for this, I was looking to see what he would make. 2 years, $45 million with a player opt-out available after 2026. So that's $22.5 million, right? 22 plus 22 is 44. Yep. I did the math on the air. I don't know if that price is going to work for the Padres, but I think with him being on a down year last year, there might be some wiggle room. Maybe there's a Nick Pivetta type deal that they can do where he gets paid $1 million or $2 million this year, and then next year he makes 20-something million dollars. So I would like Zach Gallen. I think the Diamondbacks already went and re-signed Merrill Kelly, 2 years, $40 million. That kind of tells you how they feel about it. 2 years, $45 million as a projection, that's a little too much for what Zach Gallen did last year. But if you get the Zach Gallen that in previous years, you were getting an ace. You're not an ace, but you're getting a guy who has been talked about in the Cy Young Award in the past. Chris says Gallen equals Cease 2.0. I don't know if I believe that. I would have to dig deeper into that and see if I can make that connection. Again, I think we're all going to miss Dylan Cease a little bit more than we think we're going to. But Zach Gallen is a guy who makes a lot of starts. I think that's what they're looking for. And he can mow down a lineup. And think about that. You got Michael King, you got Nick Pivetta, you got Joe Musgrove, you got Randy Vasquez, and then you got Zach Gallen. I think that's good. All right. Hitter. The hitter was a little bit harder for me because there isn't really anyone who jumps off of the page as they have to have this guy. So I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to say Luis Ariz. So Jonathan says $10 to $15 million range. I'm going to say Luis Ariz. He's in that range. He fits right in. He's a good clubhouse guy. I don't know that there's anyone out there on the market right now that is going to be cheap enough and is going to and you're going to have some familiarity. You're not going to have any familiarity with these people. Oh, we got a Trevor Bauer. I don't know that Trevor Bauer's ever going to pitch in Major League Baseball again. I don't know if Trevor Bauer is good enough to pitch in baseball, but I do know he's probably not coming back. But yeah, hitter, Luis Ariz, because he's in that price range. He's familiar with the team. You know what to do. Gonsolin, Victor says on the chat. Tony Gonsolin. I mean, he's just been really injured. I don't have faith that he can make it through a full season. I don't have faith that he can make it through half a season. He hasn't shown that in the last couple of years, but hey, you get a discount. I wouldn't mind. All right. Let's get into this story about the new betting platform. It's not a betting platform. I don't know what to call it, but it's like you wager cryptocurrency on like odds of real world events occurring. So here's the example, and I'm not going into politics, everybody. I just say what the example is. But in a mysterious online bettor made more than $400,000 on Polymarket, which I'm seeing also Kashi. The Kashi is a food. I've seen commercials for Kashi, and I've seen I've seen commercials during sporting events. But a mysterious online bettor made more than $400,000 on Polymarket by correctly predicting the U.S. would invade Venezuela and topple President Nicolas Maduro. So the bets, you could see these public bets, but there are a lot of people concerned about insider trading on this. If you have information that the United States is going to go after this guy, you can go right to this Polymarket. You can put down a ton of money and you can win because you know it's going to happen. So it's not like there's odds or anything from what I understand. And I've done a really deep dive on this, and I cannot describe it in a way that makes a lot of sense to me. But here's the way I describe it. It's like a stock, and you're putting money down into, you're saying, okay, I think in the next 2 weeks, the U.S. is going to invade Venezuela and topple President Nicolas Maduro. And you could put money onto that, and then more and more people are going to think that's going to happen, so it raises, and then you can make a ton of money. Oh, there we go. Prediction market. Thank you, Trevor. That's a good one. Prediction market. I like that because you're trying to predict world events. Okay. Thank you very much, Trevor. Anyway, back to the story. $400,000 was made here, and Polymarket, actually it's an anonymous website. You don't have to really put any information out there on your profile. But the account in question made only 13 bets totaling $33,934. All of them were placed between December 27th and January 3rd and were related to the probability of the U.S. soon invading Venezuela. And it's unclear where this account was created. It's unclear who's behind this account. Polymarket did not respond to a request for comment, but that is a little suspicious to me that they've made 13 bets in their entire account career between December 27th and January 3rd, totaling $34,000, let's say, and they end up making $400,000. So that's suspicious to me. I don't think anyone, I mean, unless you have a ton of money, I don't see people doing this, but I don't know many people that are going to put $34,000 on something like this happening in 13 bets and then getting it to pay off relatively quickly, going from $34,000 to $400,000. So why I'm bringing this up is I feel like we are doing a disservice to people by making all of this available. Do we really need, and I know that there are people out there that are going to be like, hey, you can do whatever you want. So why does it bother you? Why it bothers me is this is just another option for people to flush their lives down the toilet. And what I mean by that is sports betting is already terrible. We're already reading all of the different stories about things that are happening in sports betting and people losing their families, people taking their own lives because they've lost so much money. Now, I do understand that you have to put some of the responsibility on the person using the platform. But why I don't get why we need something like this. Yeah, the stock market is like this a little bit, but there are so many gray areas with this that I could just see it going down a weird rabbit hole where something is people put money behind something, they feel like it has hit, other people or poly market doesn't feel like it's hit, and so who is to say who wins, or who is to say that the bet is overwhelmingly going to, let me start that over, who is going to come in and say, hey, you lost the bet or you won the bet? It seems like it has all. It seems, for me, from my looking at all of this and reading about this, it seems like they are just willing to take as much money as possible. And it's also kind of shady because it's all, I guess, not shady because cryptocurrency is not really that shady anymore, but this is all transacted over cryptocurrency, so everything is anonymous, which I also feel like is a big issue as well. When you're anonymous, who's to say people aren't fixing things? I mean, come on. This just seems like a really slippery slope. This just seems and like an unnecessary thing. And maybe that's because I don't have money to put down on world events. I will go check out the different wagering opportunities out there I want to see, but I'm never going to put money down on this. Same like sports betting. You have to set a limit. But I feel like you can even get into more trouble with a website like this because you lose one and then you chase it and you think that you're going to get it back, like, oh, I know this is going to happen. And I guess you could put large amounts of money onto sports betting, but I just feel like for some reason I feel like this is a much slipperier a slope for everybody. There were at least, according to NBC News, there were at least 4 other Polymarket accounts betting in connection with this. All those bets were being placed between Thursday and Saturday for between $700 and $900. They made between $7,000 and $14,000. So it just seems like there's a really big opening for insider trading on this whole thing. Jonathan says, Skraby, you feel ick because you've been an addict, as have I, and it raises red flags if you're an addict. Yeah, that actually makes sense. It does give me ick. I feel ick because I have been down a path of bad, I've been down a path of alcoholism and all the things that come along with that. And I know how dangerous things like this can be because to me, sports betting is an addiction, just like alcoholism is. Eating eating addiction is just like alcoholism. I think they're all connected. And sports betting is something that I feel very strongly about because I just don't know that people realize it. I don't know that people don't realize I don't know that people realize that sports betting is a massive problem in this country. I think there's ways to do it. I think there's ways to do it responsibly, but I've read too many stories about DraftKings and FanDuel sending free money to people, and then those people put more money into it because they think that when you get free money from these websites, they're like website credits. They're not actual money. So Joseph says, is watching the Skraby Show an addiction? Sure, if it's a healthy addiction. But anyway, I wanted to bring this up because I've been seeing those commercials for Kalshi, and I saw this whole thing about Polymarket, but I just don't know. We're going in such weird directions all the time now. And Polymarket seems to be one of those things. All right. Do I want a daily gripe? Yep, I'm a gripe now. I'm a gripe now.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
All right. Daily gripe today is something I don't think anyone will ever expect me to say. In a million years, they wouldn't expect me to say this. This morning, I was cleaning out my SD fat loss containers for lunch and dinner, and here's my daily gripe. I cannot stand it when the smell of the sponge gets on your fingers, like the mildew. Like if a sponge is sat in a sink or if it's been like drying, everybody knows what this smell is like. It's just disgusting. So I started cleaning my stuff. I smelled it. I couldn't do it, and then I put my hand up to my nose and I smelled the mildew. The mildew sponge smell for some reason is pungent. It smells disgusting, and it's just something I don't want to deal with, and it sticks on your hand forever. Like, I'm sniffing my hand. I can still kind of smell it. Dominic, I have a Scrub Daddy. Guess what? My dog ate it. So I don't have a Scrub Daddy anymore. What soap do I use? It's blue. I'd have to go look. Dawn, maybe? No, I don't know. I'd have to go look. But anyway, that smell is my daily gripe. And I don't think anyone would have predicted it. Oh, man. Joseph says you got to switch your sponge quicker. I bring it out every time so there's no water in there. Rod has a disgusting thing. It says, I smelled that smell coming from a community sponge in the office sink. Ugh! Ugh! We have a community sponge here. And Rod said, I don't know whoever uses a community sponge. We have a community sponge here, and I see people using it all the time. I think Chris uses the community sponge. Someone remind me to bring up to Chris tomorrow that he uses the community sponge. And McKee says, use a brush. You'll never have to touch the end. Lucky also ate that. I need to push back my stings. Anyway, thank you. Oh, gross. Dominic says, community sponge better than community dude wipes. You are absolutely correct. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Hey, it's